Effective shading can take your drawing from a flat line drawing to something that looks realistic. The key is observing and understanding the values in your reference photo. If you get the correct values in the correct place in your drawing, you'll achieve a 3D effect on the flat surface of your paper. Think about an object having 3 dimensions. That's 3 different planes, height, width, and depth, and each of those planes will be hit by light in a different way, which will result in at least 3 values. For a drawing to appear 3-dimensional, it needs to have at least 3 values. To become aware of the 3 main values in your reference, identify the highlight, the midtones, and the shadows. Now, if you have a value finder, you can use this to identify them, or create your own value finder. Create a shaded scale starting with 3 values and then adding 2 more values between them. White is the lightest value, and obviously we create this value by leaving the white of the paper uncovered. That means everything that is not white needs to be shaded in. So we can start by shading a base layer at least 1 value darker than white. You can shade this base layer in any direction, but try to keep it even and smooth with no little white gaps. Use light pressure with your pencil angled on its side to get more of the lead touching the paper. Be patient and cover all of your drawing except for the areas you want to remain white. You can then use a tissue to gently blend the base layer to get a nice smooth effect. The next step is to start adding another layer over top of your base layer. This layer will be the midtones. Try to simplify the values into big shapes. We can add details at the end, so try to see past them at this stage to the larger shapes of midtones. The midtones are everything between the lightest white and the darkest black or the dark grey values. Your midtone shapes will be close to a middle grey, but you can adjust them to be slightly lighter or slightly darker using the pressure of your pencil as you observe those changes in the photograph. Then we repeat the process, this time adding in our third value, the darkest values. Try to see these as large blocks of shape. So it kind of means that you're lumping in all of the values that are darker than middle grey together. These will be dark greys, darker greys, and black. When you've shaded in the large shapes of those 3 values, white, midtones, and dark, you should be starting to get some depth in your drawing. Once those 3 main values are in the correct place, then we can build up the subtle values between these. For example, some values might be light, but not as light as the highlight and not as dark as the midtones. We're looking for the values that cross the bridge between the light, the middle, and the dark now. Aim to find 5 to 7 values in total. You may well end up with more values as you start to see more. The more you look at your photograph, the more you're going to see. Let's take another quick look at that shading process. Step 1. Shade a light, even base layer of all the areas except for those that you want to leave white. You can blend this base layer with a tissue to smooth it out if you want to. Now don't press too hard when you're blending. Step 2. Build up a second layer focusing on the midtones. These are all of the greys between white and black. Step 3. Add a third layer, this time focusing on the shapes of dark value or shadow. And step 4, once you have all of the 3 main values shaded, then add the subtle values in between these 3 main values. Ask yourself questions like, is this part lighter or darker? Where does one value transition into another value? So the most important thing is to have those highlights, midtones, and dark values in the correct place. And this is why I always discourage dark outlines. If we start drawing too dark and end up with outlines around everything, then the values at the edges are going to be incorrect. The drawing will end up with dark values around the edges, where we probably don't want dark values, unless we can see them in the photograph. To learn to draw takes patience, and to shade well takes a lot of patience. If you rush this, you're going to end up with incorrect or uneven values. Give yourself enough time to do a good job. Take your time and build up layers of smooth, even shading, always observing and trying to match the values that you see in the resource photograph. Make sure you lean back a little bit every now and again so you can see that 3D effect starting to happen. If you have a blending stump, you can use this to smooth out some of the transitions between your values, but make sure you have those values shaded in first. Relying on your blending stump is not going to give you a good result. The shading needs to be in the correct places before you then smooth out that shading using your blending stump. The final touches are to make any adjustments or changes to the values and to make sure you have the lightest lights and the darkest darks. Do you have the whites in the correct place in your drawing? And then do you have the dark greys and the blacks in the correct place in your drawing? It's this range between the white and the black, including all of the midtones and greys in between. That range is what's going to give you the result that you want, which is a realistic three-dimensional looking drawing on our flat piece of paper. If you want to improve your shading, check out my tutorial called Focus on Shading, Achieving Realism Through Shading. That's a tutorial that's been used in this video, and it's available as part of my Sketch Club membership or for individual purchase. You can find all the details in the description section below. Keep practicing your shading, and thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next time.